What's happening, YouTube? Yeah, I caught this video off Breakfast Club Power 105.1 FM, which is apparently out of New York City. And as you see, they have a paltry 3.9 million subscribers on YouTube. And I couldn't help but notice a few things. Now, I don't really delve too much into the black hip-hop realm and the types of stories that are circulating, though. I am wary, as most black folk, especially if you're listening to me and you're familiar with who controls our media. You should be very wary of these channels and these big time sort of DJs and breakfast shows and lunch shows and afternoon drive shows and anything off mainstream sort of media that's syndicated and has huge amounts of circulation, because usually that means a lot of deals are made and a lot of a lot of shit is being pushed. So I was watching this particular, I don't know, I just stumbled upon it. What I do when I have Supreme Lord Commanders, every now and again I'll check out one of these videos coming from one of these networks, and I just happened to stumble upon this one featuring Chance the Rapper. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Chance the Rapper. I've heard of him before, but I don't really know what he looked like until I saw this video. And I actually, he doesn't seem like a bad guy. He's actually saying some pretty interesting things in this video. For instance, what I caught was that he was saying that if you're going against the grain, or if you're speaking out against a lot of what's going on, that there's a strong chance, or there's a chance that you're going to be targeted, and that COINTELPRO is going to fuck up your shit. And so they kind of put him on the spot there, and they were saying, "What do you believe that's happening to you?" and all this. And he was saying, well, he not necessarily himself, but he's saying that, he gave the example of Martin Luther King and many others that were successful within the black community, successful sort of leaders, speakers, and stuff like that, and how the CIA or other entities came in and basically made their lives very difficult, sort of thing, or may have even pushed certain people to certain paths, or may even try to gaslight people or push them into suicide, stuff like that. So I really appreciated hearing that. And so he was kind of talking about how his new album, I think his new album is not doing well with his fans, or is not selling well, and he's basically explaining that his album is about love of his wife and how much having a wife and having that means to him. And he's stating that yes, he is actually kind of going against the grain, because these days it's not cool to sing about monogamy, right? It's not cool to sing about having a wife and how much you love her and stuff like that. People have a tendency to want to hear drama, and the music industry, and also it's kind of pushed around a lot that people that are suffering put out the best content. Like the artist that's under the most duress usually produces the best masterpieces and stuff. And there is truth to that for sure. But he was saying that that's kind of how people, a lot of people will live their lives in that way because they think they're going to produce better music or something like that. And he doesn't think that's a healthy way to live. So I thought I was kind of impressed with this guy. But what I noticed here, because okay, it's a radio show, right? So I don't know the ads. I haven't listened to it on New York radio or syndicated radio or anything like that. So I don't know what comes with it. Right? I imagine they're selling all the same type of shit that they're selling on most of these things. I don't know the type of content that they feature on this show. I know there's one of the hosts is called Charlemagne the God, which I think is a stupid thing to call yourself. Nobody should be calling themselves God. And that is something that's big in the hip-hop culture. I do not like this guy Charlemagne the God. I saw him on Joe Rogan, and he rubbed me really bad. Most people that go on Joe Rogan are not authentic people, or are people that are shilling. So when I'm watching this show and I'm seeing all little things, so what you see here, Envy, so that's this guy's name, DJ Envy, whatever, right? I mean, if you, I don't know if that means you want people to envy you, but the Charlemagne the God is a way of mocking God, and this is something that's huge in the hip-hop industry. The biggest hip-hop artists are often mocking God or often acting like they're God. Jay-Z is a great example. Kanye West and several others have put out albums where they're actually godlike figures, or that they're assuming the power of God, right? And this is a big thing within the Illuminati of the music industry sort of thing, mocking God or acting like you are God. So you'll see this everywhere. So I'm not going to really, what I'm going to say is this, all right? I mean, look, people that get these shows and have millions of views, it's unlikely that you're going to get, and that's an interesting thing because this Chance the Rapper kind of references that in the sense that he's actually saying, when you get to a certain popularity, if you're not towing the line, if you're not fitting in, they're gonna come after you. So what he was saying is a lot of people are targeting him on Twitter, and there's a lot of fake accounts that are coming after him and writing nasty things and shit like that. A form of gaslighting, right? Maybe a very mild form, because I can't really feel too. I don't know this guy from Moses, although I know him now from Moses. I could say that's Chance the Rapper by looking at him, sort of thing. But I didn't know him before this, so I don't really know his history, and I don't know. But he seems to be a fairly authentic guy, and I like a lot of the things that he was saying in this segment. So, but what caught my eye was what's in the studio around these characters. So you can see here they've got a magazine, which I think features the three major hosts here on the show. There's a woman as well. I don't remember her name at the moment, but we'll check it out in a second. I don't know who this is, big afro sort of shirt, but usually when you're doing these shows, like on radio is one thing, but on, they've got millions of subscribers, so they're getting, this video was put up today, a few hours ago, and it's already got 200,000 views. So there's a lot of people watching this. Maybe some of their videos are getting millions of views, maybe potentially more. And as I mentioned, some of these characters have appeared on Joe Rogan before. So what I noticed, though, going through this was something that troubled me. Can you spot it? Okay. I shouldn't have to tell anybody what I'm referring to, although I already mentioned Charlemagne the God, and I don't like this guy. All right, I don't think you should like him either. I don't think it's good to admire people that are in this industry. I really have to emphasize that all your major sort of platforms are controlled, and the only people that would make it up to this level would be people that have made deals, sort of thing, and are towing the line. So I don't like this guy. I don't like his name. And what I see all around him, as every time the camera goes on him, is his bar. So I want you to think about this. And he's got Phenomenally here. Phenomenally. I don't know. Right? That could be another band or something, or album, or I don't know. I really don't know. But the thing is that what immediately struck me was how we know this, like, especially if you're colored, right? If you're black, if you're Hispanic or something like that, you would know that in the neighborhoods, especially the ghetto neighborhoods, alcohol is pushed everywhere. Now, I did I did years back, I think 2015 on Supreme Lord Commander, I did Grand Theft Auto 5. And one of the main, you play 3 characters, by the way, and one of the characters you play is a black guy. And you switch between the characters. And you start off as the black guy, and he lives kind of in the slums of like an equivalent of Los Angeles, like East LA or something like that, like a really poor part of Los Angeles. And right outside his front door is a massive, massive advertisement for whiskey or something, right? Like alcohol. And then the closest store that he has to him, which is within a literal stone's throw, is a big liquor store. And then right next to that, I think there was a gun store or something. I can't remember. It was years back. But the thing is, that's what we know. And if you watched a lot of these movies that were produced in the 90s, for instance, there's a lot of black movies that came out that were showing the gang warfare in Los Angeles, right? The Bloods versus the Crips and stuff like that. You know that, I remember I think one of the directors was John Singleton. There's a few others that spring to mind. They were actually black directors that were making movies and making positive or making statements about the reality of how most black people live, and that these neighborhoods, they're putting liquor stores and gun stores in these neighborhoods because they want people to drink and they want people to shoot themselves, right? They want to keep the population down, just like they're putting the abortion clinics, the Planned Parenthood, right? Now, I don't know if these guys ever talk about Planned Parenthood or if they would talk about it in a favorable light. I really don't know. So if you're somebody that's familiar with these characters, please chime in by all means, right? But I'm concerned about what this type of show is programming black people with, especially young, impressionable black people. Because if the host is called Charlemagne the God, obviously we're talking about somebody that has narcissism problems, serious narcissism problems, to call yourself something like that. Now, my channel is Supreme Lord Commander. That's a joke. All right. Maybe his thing is a joke. Maybe it's a joke. Maybe because I definitely not the Supreme Lord Commander of anything, right? I made that as a joke of years back when I was being criticized as having an ego and stuff like that. And so I don't want you to take that the wrong way. I don't go around calling myself Supreme Lord Commander, right? That's just a fun was supposed to be a fun entertainment channel. Now it's become a more serious channel because I'm very concerned about what's going on. So just that alone, but the alcohol was stunning. And I was like, well, wait a second, this is a breakfast show? And they're showing alcohol. And it wasn't just in these shots featuring this turkey that they were showing alcohol. I'll show you as we go forward here. There's shots. This is the Charlemagne. Or this is, sorry, Chance the Rapper. All right, seemed like a decent chap. And as you see around them, you've got some of the stuff that they would want you to embrace, right? New York's hip hop, I think it says in the background there. But then you got all the alcohol back here, and it seems like, it doesn't seem like they're drinking alcohol on the show, although I could be wrong. He's got a bottle of water here. But I'll just flip forward here, or maybe I'll play a little bit, because what I noticed is whenever the girl was in camera here, it would flip to the third host, so 3 hosts, right? In the show. Okay, let's just bring this up here. Right there. The camera would make sure to get the Jameson's whiskey in the shot. Also, when Chance the Rapper is being shown, you see prominently behind him is a rainbow flag. You've also got the scissors, which you could get into the meme from one of the recent black movies, which was called Get Out, by a guy that considers himself tribe and is married to somebody of the tribe. We're talking about Jordan B. Peele, who did the movie Get Out, which was about white people brainwashing blacks into being sex slaves and gardeners and stuff like that, like a take on the Stepford Wives, sort of flipping it and making it black people. And his sequel, of course, his next film after that was called Us, U.S. Us, and it features a black family going on vacation and then realizing that there's actually clones of every single American living underground. And that one night the clones come forward with scissors and they're there to sever the link and take over. The clone is going to take over from the host, sort of thing. The clones that have been grown underground and have been fed white rabbits, basically. They're eating raw, live rabbits to stay. That's a whole nother thing. And maybe I will do a thing breaking down that film on Supreme Lord Commander at a different point in time. All right. But just to show you this, because every time this woman would come on, which was quite frequently, the Jamesons was prominently featured.
Things you've done, like you said you cheated and you said you didn't treat her the
Black
best
men
in the
don't
past.
cheat, Chance.
And you learn from that.
But that's the thing is like when we say that sometimes like it gets filtered into a joke, but I feel like it's not even like black men have never cheated. It's like
We want
black
to do
man,
better.
comma, don't cheat.
Yeah.
Like, to my black brothers out there, don't cheat. One of the best things you could do is celebrate your woman and give her a faithful.
See, I gotta say that one of the best things you can do is celebrate your woman, and that's exactly what black folks should be hearing. So good for this guy, because he's saying the right things. He's saying we should be practicing monogamy. We should be happy with the one that we're with. We should love the one that we're with, and we should be strong with them, and we should celebrate that. And we shouldn't be celebrating people that are vengeful, or people breaking apart, or people taking a, which is typical Taylor Swift, whether it's Taylor Swift or whether it's, Jay-Z or something, right? Whether it's hip hop or it's more mainstream or whatever. Typically, it's about broken relationships and me sort of thing, right? And he's saying, no, we should be celebrating the monogamous male and female that stick together and form a bond for life sort of thing. I totally agree with that. But you got the rainbow right in the background here.
Relationship and be the person that she could actually count on. And so I think in part, when you have certain messaging like I do, sometimes it makes people detract, because some people feel shame. And the more you listen to the album, the more you get into it, the more a lot of people have come to me and told me, like, yo, this is like, this makes me feel right. This makes me feel good. Right. And even when there was dissonance at a certain point, I got through it and I understand, like, this is uplifting. And I think just being honest, I got a little bit, I felt all of this pressure coming from one place, which is the internet, which is like your most direct source of like getting information about how people feel about you. And I kind of like just misrepresented the value of it in my own mind and thought that it was heavier than it was. And I wasn't really going outside or reaching the people or really understanding what they mean.
There you go. So I was
she's
trying to
in that offense
that.
somebody, you always feel like, how could that have bothered them? Right. Like, how does these words bother them? But then everybody's been on the other side of seeing some words on the internet and being like, clutches pearls. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely.
How does your wife handle it? Because I'm sure she's...
So that's exactly what I mean. Every time the women would come in, the Jameson's bottle would be featured. Right? And it seemed like the cameraman, because it seems like it is a cameraman, would make sure that comes into focus. As you see, I'll just put this back for a second here. This is every time she comes on, the same type of thing would happen.
I always feel like, how could that have bothered them? Right. Like, how does these words bother them? But then everybody's been on the other side of seeing some words on the internet and being like, clutches pearls. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely.
How does your wife handle it? Because I'm sure she's not asking to
she's
be
really
in the
good.
spotlight. She's not asking.
Right. So there's no accident that the Jamesons is coming in, just like there's no accident, in my opinion, that when Charlemagne, the god here, is, whenever he's being shown, there's all the alcohol behind him. So I have to ask you, especially if you're black, this would really help me. I mean, what do you think about this? Like, seriously. I don't think, like, I'm going to say this, and I said this about Joe Roganstein, like, who I really don't like Joe Rogan at all right? And I have good reason not to like him. Nobody should like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is a dishonest human being. Joe Rogan is a shill. Now, there's a huge difference between me, you, and Joe Rogan. I will not lie to you ever. I will never mislead you. I will never do something to deceive you. Joe Rogan does this every day. I'm not saying that Charlemagne the God is doing this, but what is he doing with all this alcohol behind him on a breakfast show? It's a serious question, because isn't this one of the major criticisms about black ghettos and black neighborhoods, that blacks are being exploited, that they're constantly being inundated with these horrible suggestions? And look, I drink alcohol. I drink moderately. And I know personally, and I'm sure anybody else out there, I'm sure I don't have to lecture anybody on how awful alcohol can be to people and how many people it ruins. Do I have to tell you that? All right? It's not like you're having organic fruit behind you. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's not like, you have plants or something, that would be positive, and you can't really come in and criticize and you say, well, there's nothing wrong with what they're showing. No, there's something seriously wrong when you got a massive bar behind one of your main guys on the show, and that whenever you flip to the other characters, you've always got a bottle of liquor showing. Now, I imagine Jameson and maybe some of the other liquor corporations have got sponsorship or are advertising with these characters, are getting are paying to have the product placement there. I imagine that would be a no-brainer. So the product placement of the Jameson bottle, Jameson's got to be paying for that. Now, I 100% believe that alcohol should never be allowed to be advertised anywhere. Yeah, not on television, not at the sports games, not anywhere. I'm not saying that you can't have a nice label on your beer bottle. I'm just saying that you shouldn't be allowed to advertise it on television or on radio or on anything public that kids or teens or anybody, right? A lot of alcoholics. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that statement. In fact, I would argue this with anyone. And I strongly believe this. Just like I say the same, I would say the exact same thing about marijuana. I'd say the exact same thing about cigarettes, nicotine, right? These are dangerous substances. We should never be promoting. I do believe in legalization. So I do believe alcohol should be legal. And I do believe that if you drink moderately, it can have it can be a decent, positive thing in your life. But I don't believe that you should ever promote it. Now, in all the years that I've been doing shows, and I've hosted hundreds, if not over 1,000, probably in the thousands when it comes to live shows that I've done over the years, I have had some drinks in the background, but I've never, ever went on camera or told people, hey, I'm getting wasted and this is awesome. And I think I had one show one time that was on like a New Year's where we actually got wasted on the show and we were, whatever, having fun. But that was way back then, and I would never do that now. And I just don't see how this is excusable in this day and age, that one of the most influential hip-hop shows that has a tremendous sort of reach within the black community. I'm just assuming this because these guys are big, man. This is a big sort of network, and they're part of the whole iHeart network, which is another thing to totally look into and what else they're involved in. But it's more like your Disney Media. But here you go, you've got a really top sort of New York hip-hop syndicated show, and these guys are promoting alcohol, and they've almost constantly got bottles of alcohol in the scene. And just to be an equal offender, and this is not offending, right? I mean, I'm actually doing this because I care deeply about how blacks are being exploited. I talked about the same thing when I showed the show Red Letter Media, which is a bunch of white guys, or at least that's how they identify on the show. You know how some people look white, but they identify as something else. People we're not allowed to talk about. Anyways, there's a bunch of white guys who have umpteen bottles of prescription pills on the tables all around them and have all these beer bottles around them. And I pointed it out when I did a video critiquing them promoting 2 transgender films, or 1 transgender film and a homosexual film that featured homoerotic sex. And I said, what the fuck are these guys doing, and why they got all this alcohol around them? And then I said, well, you could come in and argue as a cynic that they're playing a role, but they're drinking beer and they're doing this. And I don't have a problem with drinking beer. I don't think people should do it on live videos, and I certainly don't think if you have a huge audience, meaning millions of people, and you're very influential, that you should advertise drinking alcohol or taking drugs or smoking cigarettes. I absolutely don't agree with that. And I think that if you're going to do these things, you should do them discreetly. If you're going to do a live video and you're going to have some alcohol, put it in a mug or something so people don't know what it is. Don't go on about how awesome it is. Don't be sparking up doob after doob after doob, right, on a live show if millions of people are watching, because you're sending a message to a lot of impressionable people. And if we're going to be professional, like if you're going to be a professional DJ, right? If this is what your profession is, if you're Charlemagne the God, right? And you're so high, all high and mighty on yourself, I'm assuming, right? Then what the fuck, you know? I mean, like, or don't you think for a second that having all these bottles of alcohol is a really bad message to be sending to young black folk that are out there that would be watching this? Teenagers and such? Maybe even children might be watching this stuff. You never know. I don't know. I imagine a lot of teenagers listen to this stuff. So that's my criticism of this Breakfast Club Power 105.1 FM. I don't like this guy that's up with the red hat here. I don't like him. I like the Chance the Rapper guy. He seemed like a decent guy. I don't know about the other host, but I don't like this guy. I don't like his name. And I certainly don't like the fact that he's got all this alcohol behind him. It is not cool to be an alcoholic. It is not cool to promote alcoholism. It's fine. I don't care if you're drinking. Good for you. If you like to drink, good. I like to drink too. But I drink moderately, and I would never ever promote it to anyone. Right? I would never say to somebody, "Oh, come on, have a drink. You got to have a drink," sort of thing. But when you're hosting a show like this, and you're like this guy here, and you have a huge audience and a ton of, you know, let's see if I can just get him fully in the shot here. You have a huge audience, and you have, you know, a tremendous reach. This is a very bad message to be sending to people, and you should stop that shit right away. So if you hear this, I can't tweet you because my tweet is I've been blocked from Twitter, by the way, and I think people know that by now, and they just won't let me come back on. I opened up new accounts, and they just took those down, so just to let you know. But I don't agree with this, and I think even videos like this, I mean, these are videos that I might even want to come in and flag just for that. And I mean, I don't want to flag anyone. I don't want to censor anyone, but what the fuck are you doing? You know, why are you promoting alcohol? And you shouldn't be taking deals from Jameson's if that's the case. If Jameson's paying to have their product there, that's fucking low, dude. That is fucking low. You have a breakfast show, and you have all these black people that are watching, and this is what you're doing with your show? Because it appears to me all you give a shit about is money. And that's a really bad thing. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't like this guy, and I don't like your show, and I don't like what you guys are doing, so I'm calling you out. I'd like to hear what you have to say, especially if you're from the black community, especially if you're familiar with this show. I really want to hear. Maybe you can come in and defend these jokers. Maybe you can come in. What are your thoughts? And good for Chance the Rapper to speak out. You know, I don't know about his music, never heard anything by him. I wouldn't know him from Moses, you know, other than seeing him now. But I liked some of the stuff that he had to say, and I thought he actually had some pretty intelligent things. And I think there's a lot of great black folk out there that understand what's going on with the New World Order and what they're doing. But I think a lot of them keep going back. I mean, people need to know that the hip-hop industry is quite evil, like the people at the top and who's running it and the deals that are made and the types of agendas that are being pushed, right? All the rainbow unicorn shit. And there's no way they should be pushing alcoholism. No fucking way. I have a big problem with this because I know acutely how this affects people. And I know several alcoholics, and it's a nasty thing. So, you know, if you're trying to make it look cool to drink, I've got a problem. And I think all of you should too as well. Thanks for taking the time to listen to this. Let me know what you think about this. It's a little bit different than what I normally cover, but I felt it was important to point out. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.